In the Irish county of Offaly stands an imperious fortress. Once home to a family of brutal warriors, the building is now inhabited by a bevy of terrifying ghosts. Tales of bloodshed and slaughter, Leap Castle wouldn't look out of place in a Hollywood fantasy world. But the stories of death and torture here are very much real. Sean Ryan has owned this medieval stronghold for over 25 years.
We were just lucky. It came up at a time when there was nobody interested in it. It was very cheap. I had loads of energy, and I just fancied having a go at it. And that's how it came about. But we're delighted we did. We loved the place.
During his time at Leap, Sean has learned to live with his ghostly lodgers.
There are lots of spirits in the house. They don't interfere with us or make life difficult. They let us know they're here. And we live alongside that.
Sean often hosts paranormal evenings for ghost hunters from around the world. Warren Coates from Northern Ireland makes regular visits from across the Irish border.
It took a bit of persuasion to get him to allow us into the castle, but obviously Sean, being the gentleman that he is, let us in. And right from the word go, there was just things happening. It was like getting a cloak of energy just put around you as soon as you come down into it. About a couple of weeks after that, there was myself and another 2 group members came down, and up in the chapel at the top, we had stones thrown at us. And again, to us, it was just trying to draw attention. You know, people sort of freak out and think, oh, there's something trying to possess us or trying to harm us. Things they got are normally the spirit, just trying to draw attention.
Warren works alongside fellow paranormal enthusiast Neil McMenamin.
First time I was overwhelmed because it's such a big hype for this building, and you're so excited and you're expecting so much. But it took 2 or 3 goes in this building before I got what I wanted, what I got out of it.
Neil and Warren have captured many EVPs during their investigations at Leap Castle.
EVP stands for electronic voice phenomena. It's a way of capturing ghost voices or disembodied voices, normally using a digital audio recorder or a cassette recorder.
Please make a noise for us now. Oh, God.
I've been to tons of locations and things happen. You hear noises, you hear bangs, doors close, multiple different things happen. This place affects you emotionally, so I don't know how to explain that. I can explain all the other ones, but here just messes with your brain.
Please make a noise for us now. Oh, God.
And I don't know how to stop it. I don't know how to protect myself from being that way, because it did scare me.
The small stronghold in County Offaly, Ireland, has stood proudly for at least 600 years.
Leap Castle is located right in the sort of heart of Ireland, the Irish countryside, and was apparently built sometime between the 13th and the 14th century. And quite early on had come into the ownership of the O'Carroll clan, who were a notorious clan of the area who supposedly had kept a very sort of bloodthirsty reign of power over the castle.
They didn't emerge down here really as a clan. They did so up where the border now is with the north. But way back in the 9th century, they were so troublesome, they were driven out and they moved down through Ireland. Eventually came on this country, which was ruled by a clan known as the O'Bhanains. But the O'Carrolls very quickly took over, and the O'Bhanains became like a sub-tribe of theirs and lived back on the Slieve Mountains.
The fearsome O'Carroll clan remained at Leap until 1659.
Then at some point it came into the hands of the Derby family sometime in the 1600s. And there's one woman of the Derby family who apparently brought evidence of potential hauntings at the castle to the public attention.
The Derbys lived here then until 1922. It was bought and sold then many times during the 1900s until it came up again in 1991. And that's when then we, in probably a little fit of madness, decided we'd buy it. Early 94 then I started the restoration, albeit I've slowed down a good bit now because the madness is over. But we have enough space to live, so that's fine for us.
Under Sean's stewardship, Leap Castle has thrived.
The history alone, places like this need to be kept and restored, and it's good with the paranormal world because it keeps, see like the money produced like doing events and all here, that brings in a ton of money that we can use to restore. Then we help Sean restore the building and keeps it up to date and stuff and all, and keeps more people visiting from all around the world because this building is known all around the world. It's just an amazing building in general, so it is.
It was the history alone that first persuaded paranormal investigator Ray Mullen to visit Leap.
The very first time I came here, we actually came on a day trip. You know, we just came to have a look at the castle, and we actually were staying in a near castle, Kinnity Castle, and we were really intrigued by it. There was like a feeling as you walk in that door. And we decided we'd like to stay the night here, you know. So we had the group set up at that stage. So we said, okay, we'll give it a go and see what it's like. And the very first time we stayed here, we were scared because we'd heard so much about the castle. There was a few things happened that we couldn't explain, noises and stuff that we were amazed by.
Certainly we have had smells up in the gallery room upstairs where a real strong sort of disgusting smell would have wafted across, and then a split second later the smell's gone. You know, and you also get that drop in temperature.
Many believe that activity like this is all down to an unworldly inhabitant of Leap Castle.
Elementals are what I would class as low-level entities, basically. They're not human, they've never been human, they've never walked the earth as a human, hence why the elemental name is given. The elemental that's supposedly in Leap Castle is classed as a figure, but it's also accompanied by the smell of rotting flesh, and people say that this is more of a demonic entity within Leap Castle rather than obviously a positive energy.
Now, it sounds horrific and all that, and it was written about by eminent people at the time who stayed here and experienced it, and I'd have no cause to doubt them.
Stories of the elemental date back centuries.
Elementals are very common in folklore, particularly in sort of Irish folkloric mythology. Talk of fairies and the creatures of the country and hidden realms. We sort of see them cross into ghost stories because they have properties that what we think of as traditional ghosts might share, and you know, some people have even suggested that what we take to be a ghost is actually an elemental. That's a whole different thing in itself.
I believe that they reside on a different plane than us, within our plane, but not to where we could see them or be a part of their world. And from what I know of elementals, the one in Leap Castle was conjured, was brought through in a negative way to do negative things.
One group of ghost hunters decided to fight negativity with negativity at Leap Castle and captured a disembodied voice on camera.
I mean, this is your place. You're supposed to be the boss here. Seems like you're getting your face licked here, man. Just like...
In this particular audio recording, you can hear a clear no response. Now, the investigator was provoking and trying to get the spirit to interact, communicate and respond, but the response is quite clear and it's whispered, and there is a definite no there.
I've seen it be used as a tactic to try to provoke spirit to get them to communicate with you, but I really just think it pisses off the spirit. I mean, I'm sure you get what you're looking for in terms of provoking the spirit, but I think it's a very dangerous game to play. But I guess it works for some people.
Anger and negativity are two strong feelings that run deep at Leap Castle. Years of bloodshed and torture have left a legacy of tyrannical spirits. Leap Castle in the rural Irish county of Offaly has dominated the picturesque landscape for 600 years. The family most synonymous with this stronghold is the brutish O'Carroll clan, who defended the land around them by any means necessary throughout the 16th century. One particular story from 1592 reads like a plotline from a Hollywood fantasy drama. The O'Carrolls hired a neighbouring tribe, the McMahons, to act as mercenaries for them. After helping the O'Carrolls train for battle, a feast was planned to celebrate.
So they invited McMahons back here to be paid, and they held a banquet up in the bloody chapel for them. But when they got them up there, they poisoned all 29 of them. They poisoned their wine. The experts would say the only reason is they didn't want to pay them. There is an account written by a Father Gleeson saying that on the night then they went crazy because they started cutting the heads off the McMahons and they kicked them out the windows at the top and made footballs out of them around the barn.
The bloody chapel has been known to leave a lasting impression on visiting ghost hunters.
I've been here 4 times, so I have, and it's an amazing location, so it is. It affects your emotions, something shocking. It is a total different feeling. It's hard to explain, but it wipes you, it exhausts you, it's tiring. It's enjoyable, it's an amazing location.
It's only when you're here on your own, at night time, when things generally happen. Some people say it's ridiculous, it only happens at night time. It's just, I think the reason for that is because you're on your own, there's not many distractions going on.
Warren Coates remembers spending the night in the chapel.
We walked into the chapel, and over at the far side, just when you turn, you walk into the actual chapel itself, there's a doorway at the left-hand side of it. And I was aware of a figure standing in the doorway, but I thought, I suppose in my naivety, I thought it was like a dummy or something had Sean had set up just for added sort of fear factor. We walked into the room, sat the stuff down, I looked over and the figure was gone. And I never said anything to one of the other group members. I went, I could have sworn there was somebody standing, there was a man standing over there. And we thought it was Sean's wife or his daughter. And then we found out there was nobody down here. We actually went into that room and there was nobody at all there. But I say, you'll be standing here and you hear the noises, you hear the doors rattling, you hear the chairs rattling on the stone flagons, and you hear the footsteps up above as well.
Warren's fellow paranormal team member, Neil McMenamin, had a terrifying experience in the unholy chapel.
I don't know why I went off my own, but I just went off for a wee walk. So I just had a wee look around, and I worked my way up the bloody chapel, and everyone's downstairs having fun, eating, all chilling out. And I got upstairs and I came in here, and I remember, I think it was nearly an hour went by and no one came looking for me. I didn't even notice I was gone, and it was just getting dark, so it was. I was just standing and just looking about, and there was black shadows floating about here and there, kept outside my eyes, kept catching them. So I did, and I was calling out. Something overcame me. I sort of worked my way towards the window. Something was telling me, I'll be okay if I jump. I'll be okay. I know it sounds a bit crazy, so it does, but I must have been standing there for a good 20 minutes, looking, thinking I could squeeze through that window and looking down at the forest below. Someone was telling me, you'll be fine. You're not going to get hurt. You're going to jump. It'll be 100% fine. Nothing's going to happen to you. And lucky enough, one of the other staff members came up the stairs and called me, and I just snapped out of it. So I did whatever I was in, and it sort of freaked me out. It's terrified me of this bloody chapel, because I don't really want to down around here on my own. Do you know, if I'm ever up here again, I'll be up here with people.
So occasionally we might hear of a ghost sighting or an interaction with a ghost that involves the sensation of having been taken over by the spirit, or, in a way possessed by the apparent spirit. And it's certainly not restricted to Leap Castle. It could be that something in all the history and the sort of the drama and emotion of these stories And then being at the location, I think, can sometimes sort of people can maybe embody something of that through the atmosphere of the building and the history.
I think if you're up here on your own, there's a good chance that you could have something that pushes you to do things you don't want to do.
Paranormal expert Jo Lockwood was also affected by something in the Bloody Chapel when she paid a visit to Leap Castle.
It's a gravel floor. You've got to really be careful where you're standing because one failed move, you would be out the window. And all of a sudden I felt a wave of emotion come over me, and it was like I was spinning on the inside of what I would perceive to be a vortex or a portal. And I felt like I was spinning round. And as I came to, I was stood right near the window, and one of the people who I was with actually said to me, "You need to come away from the window." So that leads me to then think maybe there was something there that was asking me to do something and I wasn't aware of it. It's a strange occurrence. It's not something that I want to repeat again, if I'm honest.
Lots of people are susceptible to spirits, and that means that they're able to be taken over by them, especially mediums or those with clairvoyant gifts. So sometimes mediums can channel spirits, but it's very rare for a person that doesn't practice that kind of spirituality to be taken over by a spirit. But when this happens, it's a sometimes scary and very, very dangerous thing.
Going into haunted locations, you come into contact with very powerful spirits that can make you feel the way that they're feeling. We're such sad spirits that make you feel the way that they're feeling. And there have been accounts of people being taken over by spirit. It's not a common thing, but I think it's more common to have a spirit project onto you what they're feeling. It makes more sense than being possessed. And being in such a place of such destruction and terror and torment and torture, definitely makes sense that you'd walk in there and you would feel everything that those people felt going through what they did at that building and that location.
Neil will never forget the power of the spirit in the Bloody Chapel.
Scary how spirits can actually control you and do stuff to you that you don't think. I thought I was no way in hell. I think I'm stronger than them. Do you know what I mean? I never thought they would have as much power on me.
Leap Castle is synonymous with bloodshed, but not all the ghosts at the medieval stronghold are linked to its brutal past.
Emily and Charlotte are two child spirits that are often seen and heard playing at Leap Castle. Both their spirits have been seen playing on the staircase, and it's reported that Emily's scream has been heard as she's fallen from the battlements.
Paranormal investigators believe that Emily fell to her death around the turn of the 17th century.
Lots of people would see a rope ladder because where she got up to fall, she had to go up on a rope ladder. And quite a lot of people who are touched with things see that rope ladder. Now what we experience is we hear a scream. We think it could be the scream of her falling. We're not sure. I mean, we can't be 100% sure. But it's the only thing that raises the goosebumps, you know, when we hear that scream. And it's really short. It cuts off like a knife.
Although Emily can be heard falling, it's her companion Charlotte who appears to be suffering an injury.
They're always together. And she has a very badly deformed right leg. It's almost completely turned backwards. And she hobbles around after Emily.
So it makes sense that their spirits would still remain there, because if my brother or my sister, something bad happened to them and I couldn't find them on the other side and they were where they passed away, I would stay with them just to be together.
Although not much is known about the history of the two children, it's not uncommon to have young spirits inhabiting a haunted building.
There are so many reports from paranormal investigators and eyewitnesses of children being seen and heard playing in various locations across the world. It's common for spirits to stick around in their place of death because of the torture and the torment and the traumatic circumstances that these spirits would have died in.
There's something uniquely tragic about the idea of a child having lost its life, even a child being murdered, and then this sort of sense of them being left alone to haunt a place and being trapped there. I think that plays on all of our emotions.
Child spirits tend to be more mischievous, so you may tend to find that child spirits are more stuck in people's minds because they like to pull things, they like to mess with people's hair, they like to tap you, and things like that, which is intelligence, especially for a child spirit.
Emily and Charlotte are often seen alongside another spirit known as the governess.
We might often hear as well stories of how they're supposedly being looked after by a governess figure or a nanny or some sort of caretaker. And I think that sort of emerges from this idea of the tragic notion that a child is somehow being left behind by their parents. And it's comforting to think that they're actually being looked after by somebody.
She's always around when the two girls are around. But she touches off people. It's like somebody passing you and kind of brushing off you. A lot of our visitors now experience that.
So even in death, if they're intelligent spirits, she would still be looking after them because that was her job in life. So she would still continue to do that in death.
But not all the ghosts at Leap Castle are quite so shy and retiring. Some of them are ready and willing to make themselves heard.
Eat.
County Offaly in Ireland is home to one of the most haunted historic structures in the world, Leap Castle. Ghost hunters regularly make the journey to this rural location in the hope of experiencing the unexplainable.
It's an amazing place. There's definitely something here. Because of the bad past that Leap would have had, maybe it's because so many people have died in Leap Castle that maybe that's the reason. But it's hard to really put your finger on it.
A lot of stuff's happened here, a lot of history. Nearly every person that's came here has been affected in some sort of way.
Ghost hunter Warren Coates has been passionate about the paranormal from a young age.
So I always had the interest, but I went, this is rubbish. You know, there's no such thing. Went out to try and disprove it wrong, and went to a couple of sort of local, supposedly haunted locations, and changed completely. Witnessed stuff that just could not put away as natural occurrences. Looked at all the possibilities and was left with one thing, it was the paranormal. So since that, I've been a believer.
Eventually, Warren's curiosity led him to Leap.
The first time I came here was around 20 years ago. Long before Leap Castle now is known as one of the most haunted castles in Europe.
During one of his many visits, Warren captured something out of the ordinary.
One of the photographs we have is actually a couple of group members were up in the room with the balconies in where the elementals are supposed to be seen. And one of the group members was actually looking in the mirror, and I was standing at the far side of the table and I took a photograph. A lot of people say that it looks like a face looking back at them.
Could this be the face of one of the many men who lost their lives at Leap Castle?
If you've got people being thrown into dungeons who are going to be left there, you imagine the actual emotional anxiety that they're going to go through. It would obviously have a massive effect on the energy levels that are absorbed within the fabric of the building.
I would say that it's common for a spirit to stick around where they passed on due to it being so abrupt or so horrific that they don't know they're dead. They feel like they can't move on. It really goes back to the story of the spirit and what happened to them.
The bloody history of Leap Castle attracts ghost hunters from far and wide. Ray Mullen and his paranormal team are based in Dublin, but they often travel the 90-mile journey just to carry out investigations here.
We've come to Leap so many times. We've had voices on clips which you just can't explain. It just doesn't make sense.
Ray works alongside his paranormal teammate, Derek Johnston.
I think it's just the history of the bloody chapel that gives this place its reputation and tends all the groups need to come and visit. I just keep it drawn back to the place.
Ray and Derek have perfected a way of capturing the spirits at Leap.
What we do is we set up some cameras, we set up EVPs, and we just talk to see is there anything there and if we get any answers. Most of the time you'd be talking away, having a general chat, and you'll just hear a voice and maybe in the background when you're listening back. And it's when you least expect it.
There's two of the lads out on the balcony where John grows the grapes, and we were setting up the cameras on the inside, and I was shouting out to Stephen, who's there with us as well, how to hire and lower the cameras. And then we got this EVP that's something said, it, and then a laugh, or it could be eat, and a laugh.
Eat.
Derek would listen to a lot of footage. He spends so many hours. It takes a lot of dedication. He sits down, he goes through all the tapes, and you'd get a phone call from Derek to say, I've just heard something I really need you to listen to. This particular clip, there was no female there that night. We're just setting up equipment, and it's like you can hear a female voice. It's like as if she's been watching or something, you know, in the background while we're setting up the equipment.
Eat.
It's saying eat and laughing in like this malevolent, nasty laugh. Sounds like a clear EVP. I would definitely rank that high on the EVP scale.
EVPs like this still excite a seasoned investigator like Derek.
The hair stand up on your neck, to be honest, because I'm a skeptic as well, so I don't usually believe in all this stuff, but I can't explain it.
Not all spirits know we're here. Some of them are intelligent, some of them are just residual. So those intelligent spirits are able to see us and perhaps interact and communicate with us. But these residual energies, these ghosts, are just moving around their kind of everyday world. They aren't able to see us, they aren't able to hear us or interact with us, but we might well see them or get a glimpse of them in their own world.
On the very same night, Derek kept his recorder rolling.
Shortly after that then, there was another EVP. Within the 3 minutes of that clip, there's another one near the end of it. It's a very faint voice, you probably need earphones to hear it, but it sounds like I had to go past Jesus Christ, or something like that.
In this audio recording, you can hear what sounds like a male voice, and it says something like, I had to go past Jesus Christ. It's definitely a sentence, it's definitely a male voice that's speaking just as the door is squeaking open.
Sometimes you get something that you're like, what was that? We're gonna have to break that down and, amplify that so I can hear it. And then you have EVPs that are clear as day as this one, that you can hear exactly what they're saying, and I say that's a damn good EVP.
It was a fantastic capture for Derek and Ray.
It used to scare us, this is really, really strange, But now, you sort of get used to it. We wouldn't have had a huge amount of times it's happened. But when it does happen, there is no explanation for it. Where did the voice come from? There must be something. So there's something in there that says there is something,
Capturing intelligent spirits on tape can be extremely difficult, and often the responses they give are seemingly random. Is it possible that they're not even aware that they're being contacted?
I don't think it's that they don't know. I think it's that they don't care to know. I believe the afterlife is very much what you perceive it to be, what you want it to be. But as I've come to know is they're aware of time, but they're in a timeless place. So how aware of time can they be? So they know that we're there and that we're, still living and on the other side, but I don't think they're like, oh, it's 4 o'clock, Eastern Standard Time. You know, gotta hurry up, it's getting dark outside. I don't think they're aware like that.
Leap Castle has stood in the Irish countryside for almost 600 years, so it's no surprise that there are numerous stories of paranormal occurrences within.
There are reports of an old man seen sat in the fireplace at Leap Castle, but only the top portion of his body is seen. Now, he could well be a residual energy, a ghost, but the reason why he's only this part of his body is seen is because the floor might be a different level than it was back in the day. So what you're seeing isn't really there, but the building has changed and the structure of the room has changed so much that we're only seeing this portion of his body.
When Jo Lockwood visited Leap, she felt the presence of this mysterious man.
I was sat in the fireplace because it was really, really cold when we went there. Leap Castle is situated quite far back and it's quite high up. And once I was in there, it was very, very cold because it's all stone. And I was actually drawn to a seat, and I actually asked the gentleman who actually owns the castle, I said, is there a gentleman who sits here? And he said, yeah, you're right.
It's hard to pin him down to a time, you know, because we don't know how he's clad or anything. But he doesn't seem to be aware of us. He often sits just here in this corner. He seems to be staring out that window there and doesn't seem to be aware of us at all.
There are many theories about why the apparition of the elderly man is not complete.
I don't know why only half of his body shows up. I don't know if that's the imprint in time or if he had no legs or that's how spirit comes across. But I would count it as residual energy because he's seen at the same place every time in front of the fireplace. He really doesn't try to communicate with anybody. He really doesn't say anything. He's just seen. So I would say he's residual energy. That was a prominent place, an important place to this gentleman. That was his time in front of his fireplace.
When we hear of ghosts that are disembodied and only partially visible, people tend to think of this as representing one of two things, which is either that when they originally existed, the place that they sat on or where they used to walk was sort of below where it is now. You can't sort of see below the floor, so that might be one explanation. Another being that if it's a residual ghost, whatever's keeping it here is starting to wear out over time and it's sort of vanishing.
With such a vast treasure trove of spirits, it's no surprise that Leap Castle continues to excite paranormal experts from far and wide. Leap Castle is one of the most haunted locations in Ireland. A history of bloodshed and torture has left a whole host of paranormal energy within the building.
I suppose we kind of want to associate spirits with places like Leap Castle because they're sort of quite dark and mysterious and sort of traumatic history. It sort of really captures the imagination of what we associate the haunted place to be.
In the castle's most notorious room, the Bloody Chapel, the apparition of Father Thaddeus O'Carroll has been seen on many occasions.
It's quite common for the spirit of monks or priests to be seen haunting locations. In this particular case at Leap Castle, the priest was murdered by his own brother in the Bloody Chapel.
Thaddeus was one of the members of the barbaric O'Carroll clan who once ruled over Leap Castle. Unlike in so many tribes, the leadership did not pass down to the son of the chieftain. Instead, the elders would select a shortlist of candidates and decide between them. When Mulrooney O'Carroll died in 1592, Thaddeus and his brother Tig were in line to take over.
Two of them were up for chieftaincy at the time. And one of them, Thaddeus, was a priest. Tig was the other one. Thaddeus started a mass one Sunday before Tig arrived. And Tig reckoned it was the worst insult ever paid him, and he killed him. But of course he was getting rid of the opposition, and he did, and he became chieftain.
Paranormal experts believe that Thaddeus still roams the chapel in search of revenge.
As in Japanese folklore, the sort of spirit is known as a reikon, and you can actually get a very specific ghost called a yurei. So a yurei is a ghost made specifically because the spirit was created through a violent act. And so in that moment of violence or heightened emotion, the spirit transforms into a ghost called a yurei, which then will come back to haunt whoever they consider responsible for their death or creating that moment.
But with Thaddeus being a holy man, it's possible that he's not out for vengeance and perhaps just wanders through the chapel he once called home.
So his ghost still remains there, which makes sense because he might be protecting it. He may be trying to warn people to not go there if it's a bad place, if it's a dark place, because there's just a lot of heavy darkness surrounded around that energy. So maybe the priest is sticking around to bring light and love and to maybe keep the darkness at bay, like a protector, like there to protect and oversee and make sure that there is peace brought to the land. I don't think he's stuck. I think he's there at his own will to do good.
While searching for Thaddeus, paranormal investigator Warren Coates saw the apparition of another religious figure in the chapel.
There was one, there's an oldish man. We've seen a couple of caves up there. It looks like a stereotypical monk that walks about, but he would sort of hide. If you're over at the far side where Liebelead is, he sort of hides over in the background, and he would sort of stay there. And then when you walk away, it's as if he's following you throughout the castle, keeping an eye on just what you're doing.
We tend to hear a lot of stories about religious ghosts, or particularly in the United Kingdom and Ireland, ghosts of the Christian faith. We frequently hear of monks being sighted near religious locations or places that have been sanctified. And I guess the reason for this is that the association with the ascension to heaven, but only being possible once you've had a proper burial. So for any religious figure to have not been buried properly or to have been murdered, to have been killed unlawfully, would somehow disturb their spirit, and therefore that's why we might see them still hanging around these buildings.
Religious ghosts are actually quite common, and it might well be because they've died perhaps in such traumatic circumstances that there is this kind of comparison to their good, fulfilling life and the way they actually perished. So their spirits are trapped in this ether, in this plane.
You don't even have to be inside the bloody chapel to experience the ghosts within.
Across the valley, and they've rung us to say there's a light in the chapel again, but by the time we get the call and get up, it's gone, So we actually haven't seen it ourselves, but they do see it, and they ring us.
I've actually seen those lights firsthand. I went to Lep Castle back in June of 2016 and went along with 2 other paranormal investigators, and it was a little bit strange, to say the least.
Light anomalies have been seen in the bloody chapel quite frequently. Now this is common because spirits use energy, including light energy, to try and manifest and show themselves. There was a massacre that took place in the bloody chapel, that these spirit energies are still residing there, and they are trying to form into something and give themselves some kind of body to show themselves, and that light anomaly is quite a common occurrence.
We often hear reports when people talk about strange sightings, particularly possible ghosts or apparitions. You commonly hear stories also of strange lights being seen at the same time, or something glowing. It might happen at night time and there's not a light source around. So, the fact that this is something that happens at Lep Castle apparently would be quite a common occurrence.
Lep Castle is a fascinating place that constantly simmers with paranormal energy. It's no wonder that the people who visit feel so enchanted by the place.
What happened to me here is something that I'll never forget, and it's something that I don't really talk about because it's a bit of a touchy subject sort of thing, and it's scared me how much spirits can do, how much power they can have over you.
The castle itself is in good hands, and there's no reason why it couldn't stand for another 600 years.
What Sean's done here is amazing. I mean, Sean took us over, it was just a shell, you know, and he's done all the work, and that's why he is so accepted by the spirit energies that live here. But there's a history. If Leap Castle had been knocked down years ago, you know, there would have been a field here, it would have been somebody's big mansion house built here now, you know, and the history would have been gone. The energies would have still been here, stories would have still been here, and all the folklore would have still been here. But, you know, once you lose places like this, it's gone forever. You know, you can certainly build a replica, but it's not good enough.
Even if it wasn't haunted, or even if it was nothing, whatever was going on here, it would still be an amazing building to come and visit, take photographs, bring your kids. It is an amazing building, so it is. It's really important to the haunted world.
It continues to be a passion project for Sean, who is maintaining the legacy and the legend of Leap Castle.
I'd probably never finish it, you know, unless I live till I'm 100 or something. That doesn't mean I won't stop. I've slowed down a good bit. The mad rush is over, but then we have enough space to live, and that's okay. But we're still working all the time at it.
Sean has done everything that he possibly could to keep the place going. He keeps the history of it alive. It's like when I come here, I try and imagine what it would have been like to live here maybe 600 years ago, you know, and it would have been quite a different place. It's an amazing castle.